Here is the whole story of Granny. Granny was born in Emboscada in Paraguay. Her parents had no work and lived in misery. To earn some money, her father went into drug trafficking. But you know, the criminal world always leads to disaster. At the age of 10, Granny's father came home with a lot of cash. He said he finished a job and that they could finally live decently. They moved in Romania, in a house in the middle of the plains. They lived in isolation for 5 years, and Granny was not allowed to go to school. Granny's father never told her the truth. He had stolen a briefcase full of money from Bolivian traffickers during a drug exchange. Now they lived isolated, so they would never be found by those traffickers, and they were surely looking for them in Latin America. So to avoid contact with the outside as much as possible, they had false documents, they didn't drive, and Granny didn't go to school. Her mother taught her the English language at home, but one day, while they were eating, a group of men with their faces covered entered their home. Granny was 15 years old and was scared. These men had Kalashnikov. One of the men, the largest, approached the table, looking at her father. He was probably the boss. He asked her father, "Where is the money?" Her father replied, "I'm going to take it. It's there in the drawer." Her father got out of his chair, went to the drawer, and then took a baseball bat. At full speed, he ran to the leader of the group and hit his head with the bat. The man fell unconscious on the ground, while the other terrorists started shooting her father and her mother. Granny wasted no time. She passed through a small hole behind the sofa, and she ran away in the forest crying. Behind her, she could hear the terrorists following her. She kept running through the trees without knowing where she was going. After 20 minutes, she stopped and rested. They were no longer following her. She was in the middle of Romania with no idea what she would have done. At one point, she found a dark mansion. It certainly seemed abandoned. She entered and saw no one. She only saw paintings stuck in a dark corridor. Then she found in the room a man and a woman eating. The man was named Charlie, and his wife, Ava. He was an Italian painter and very warmly welcomed Granny, who ate carbonara pasta with them and told him all her story. Charlie and Ava were shocked. They decided that the next day they would report everything to the police, but they didn't know they never would. There was Krasue in that mansion, the previous wife of Charlie, that was waiting for them to fall asleep, to kill them. That night, while Granny, Charlie, and Ava were sleeping, Krasue started to issue moans and weird sounds through the walls. Granny woke up, opened the door, and saw Krasue. That terrifying floating head looked at her for a few seconds and said, "Run!" Granny ran away from the mansion, leaving behind those terrifying screams. Krasue had spared her because she only wanted one thing: take revenge by killing Charlie and his wife. While Krasue killed Charlie, who would later become the ghost of the mansion, Granny ran into the forest. She managed to get to a road where she fell asleep. The following morning, she was found by the police, who asked her some questions. Granny confessed everything, but said nothing about what had happened in the mansion. Therefore, she was entrusted to an orphanage where she grew up and where she came of age. When she was 18, she started working in a bar and put money aside. One day, she returned to her home in the middle of the woods. The house had been nearly destroyed since they killed her parents, but it was still there. She went inside and saw the bat with which her father hit the terrorist chief. She took it and took it away. Granny was very good at talking to people and managed to have a job as a cook in a luxury restaurant, so she started putting aside a lot of money. There, she also met a very kind waiter, Grandpa. After a few months, they got engaged. Granny and Grandpa worked hard to rebuild the home of Granny's parents. She also hung her childhood drawings on the wall. They were still there. Granny and Grandpa married. Grandpa started to work as a carpenter. They spent their wedding years in the same house. Later, they had a daughter, Angeline, Slendrina's mother. One day, Grandpa, exploring the places near Granny's house, discovered a mansion. He opened the locked door with a crowbar, and inside, he saw that there were bags of coins. He began to pick them up, but Krasue came out of the darkness and bit him in the chest. Granny had never told him about that mansion. Grandpa ran away, but he fell down dead on the path. Granny found him and buried him behind her house. She had lost another loved one after her parents, but she was too strong to cry. She understood that her life could not have been better. After 7 years, a little boy called Simon, Slender Man, came in her house. He had lost his parents. Granny welcomed him, and she took care of him. Angeline and Simon grew together, and they fell in love when they were 17. Then, in the forest, a black dog, Good Boy, by biting Angeline's leg, sent the curse to her. Then they moved and had a daughter, Slendrina. Granny loved Slendrina very much and gave her a teddy bear, but when Slendrina was 14 years old, the curse occurred. Simon became Slender Man. Slendrina and Slendrina's mother became ghosts and began to haunt old houses. Granny had lost her family again. One night, Granny understood that the spirit of Slendrina was looking for her teddy bear, so she went to Slendrina's school and she put the teddy bear in a classroom. After Slendrina's death, Granny tried in every way to bring her husband Grandpa back alive. He discovered Liev, the future husband of Slendrina. Liev was not yet a vampire. He was experimenting in his laboratory. And they managed to bring Grandpa alive. But he was strange. He looked like a zombie. After a while, Granny decided to take him in an old nursing home in Bulgaria. Then the disgrace of the castle happened, and Granny transformed into a zombie. She went to get Slendrina's diary and the teddy bear. To protect Slendrina's diary, Granny turned her house into a trap with puzzles and riddles to torture and kill any victim. She had inherited the passion for hide and seek and puzzles from her father. She killed and tortured a lot of people with her father's bat because she saw them as enemies, thinking that they knew the secret of Slendrina. Granny realized that Slendrina's diary was in danger at her house, so she took the diary to Grandpa's house in Bulgaria, where they could protect it better. Granny is trying to bring her whole family to life, and she is succeeding.